I do agree. Jimmy Carter brought great honor upon himself and upon the United States with his post-presidential activities. And that recognition is coming now posthumously. I think during his tenure, his administration, he was not as celebrated. There were a great many events that interfered to make his presidency not as successful. But as far as his post-presidential activities, his humanitarian activities, he's by far the most revered president I think we've had in centuries.
So could you tell us how America's remembering him in terms of his legacy?
I think Americans are coming back to Jimmy Carter. They're remembering him fondly. I think there was a period of time in the last few decades when you seldom heard about Jimmy Carter because the news was more impactful, more tabloid type as it relates to our politics. Now we're looking back at his time as not only a kinder time, it wasn't gentler. The world was definitely at odds. The Cold War and the threat of mass destruction between the U.S. and Russia was there. But Jimmy Carter approached the presidency in a very dignified way, in a not as partisan way. Again, he had a great many hardships that he dealt with. He may not have dealt with them as well as others would have dealt with them. But I think he is once again being remembered as a kind and gentle man of deep Christian faith and an abiding legacy of trying to make the world a better place. And that's very rare these days.
All right. Now, is there anything in his character that today's politicians in the Capitol Hill can emulate?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Sorry.
Talking about Jimmy Carter's character, is there anything you think today's politicians on the Capitol Hill can emulate?
Well, I think a lot of politicians these days forget who they are and where they come from. Jimmy Carter grew up. He wasn't a poor farmer, but his family were farmers. They were peanut farmers. And he was a man of the earth, and he was a man of his deep faith. And he remembered that. He didn't forget that when he came to the White House and when he went to Capitol Hill. He was truly an American, and he was a man of substance. He didn't forget that substance and toss it away for political expedience. And I think that's something we all need to remember. We thought he was going to be a better leader than he was, but he certainly was a better man than anyone ever expected he would be. And we need that. He has a great sense of character and a sense of purpose in who he is, and an unwavering dedication to the American people and to his faith. And that's something I think we can all look for, both in ourselves, our family, in our leaders.
So true. Great point you have made there, Bruce. Now, as we say farewell to former U.S. President, the world is equally waiting for the return of former President Donald Trump in 12 days' time. Now, what should Africans, especially Nigerians hoping to emigrate and those already there, expect from another Trump presidency?
Well, I think in this Trump presidency, we're going to see, hopefully, that he's a little more capable and sure, and he's not distracted by answering all of his critics and staying up all night tweeting at his enemies. I believe, and perhaps I'm a little overly optimistic, I believe that this Trump presidency is going to begin what I would like to see as the African generation, where America recognizes Africa for the great continent that it is, and especially Nigeria for the great country that it is, and the great opportunities for American and U.S. and African and U.S. and Nigerian cooperation. I believe President Trump will be very pragmatic. I think his views, and I know through Tulsi Gabbard and others, the effort to thwart the continuing exploitation and ravaging of the continent by the Chinese for strategic purposes, I believe President Trump's going to combat that. And I believe you're going to see great dividends being paid to Africa because of that. America will once again be, well, maybe for the first time, will be legitimately interested in the welfare of Africa as the most strategically important part of the world right now, both in terms of minerals, but in terms of people and in terms of geopolitical. I do believe the Trump administration is going to be good for Africa, and I think it's going to be a legitimate good. It's not going to be all talk, no action, or the United States dictating to Africa what we believe they should do from a social perspective. I believe we will welcome them to the table of nations, specifically Nigeria, and I believe that that's going to be good. And that's what I'm trying to work toward, and I think there are many others in Washington trying to do that too. And there are certain reasons to believe that President Trump will understand that and will get that, because he knows how important it is for the United States to maintain a strategic position. All of that talk about buying Greenland, that's all about strategic positioning for strategic minerals and geopolitical strategy. That applies on steroids to Africa, especially West Africa. And Trump understands that.
Okay, I like your optimism, Bruce. Now, are you impressed by some of the names being put forward to become senior members of his cabinet?
Absolutely I am, for one reason. These are what we would call iconoclasts. These are not the same old people. They're brilliant people that have shown the tiny little aquarium of the Beltway in Washington and do the tiny little Beltway Washington swamp things. These are people with wide world views. These are people that are not afraid to go against societal norms and political norms. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, RFK Jr. These are people that have shown the willingness to truly, truly approach their disengagement in a new way. It's like a new dawning. It's not quite as dynamic as 1960 in Nigeria and throughout Africa. It's a little bit like that. There's a new way to look at things, and these people bring that to the table, and I'm pretty excited about that.
All right. We'll see all that they bring on the table in the coming days. Many thanks, Bruce, for joining us on News Extra. We appreciate you.
It is always great to see you. Thank you for having me.